All right. We're here on another episode of Salient Points number 67. This one's for May 3rd, 2022. As you can see, we brought someone back from the dead, Jeremy Lowe. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Yeah, glad to be back and vertical again.
Yeah, I'll introduce myself. Give me a second. I'm Carlos Macias, Master of Ceremonies. I don't know if you've listened to the show, Jeremy, but every single week we can't figure out what my title is. And Dalen, he's got to sprinkle some shit in there all the time. He's always got to do something, right? Dalen's not here this week. He is moving his dad cross country. Me and Jeremy helped him out, right? He's really moving 90 miles, but it felt like an epic adventure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially had to go down 3 flights of stairs with furniture. So
it was two. No, wait, not 3 flights. It was like 2. I was saying 3 flights of stairs, but it was
like 2.5,
2.75 flights of stairs. And one of the things that while we were on this road trip, Jeremy was like, "Well, I've been kicked off the podcast." I was like, "Whoa, not kicked off. Just you've been the invitation's been in the mail. You need to check your mail." But thank you for joining us, sir, for filling in for Dalen. He's almost always here. Not every single time, as we've proven every week to week. And we also got Luis Mendez on the wheels of steel. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Yeah, my percentage is now getting better than Dalen.
It really is, dude. That percentage is high right now. And this is the attendance rate, Jeremy, what we're speaking of right now. We're talking about.
I kind of figured.
Okay, all right, because Dalen's always like, "I'm here every time, all the time." I'm like, "No, you're not. No, you are not." But Luis, I want to give Luis a special thank you, though, because it is his birthday. So congratulations, sir. There was supposed to be a surprise birthday party for you over the week. Did they actually surprise you, or that shit was kind of spoiled by the time?
No, yeah, it wasn't a surprise.
They were like, "I know. Why would I ever go in this direction? Why would I ever go to this house without a specific purpose?" But anyways, I hope you had a fun time over there. We were moving shit down flights of stairs. Look, we didn't get our question or a comment from our favorite person out there on the internet. Jet, you need to step your game up, man. We expect those comments and questions. But we did get one from Jonathan Macias. That's my brother. He's at, what's his Twitter? Do you know what his Twitter is? Johnny something.
Johnny on the rocks, it's like spelled a little different.
It's funky, right? There's like a 0 somewhere in there or something, right? So it's a little funky. Yeah. But anyways, he tasked us with finding out. He said, "Can one of you verify this madness? ? Exclamation point, exclamation point, question mark. I just want to store mine away if that's the case." He's basically talking about someone that sent away their limited edition Xbox Series X, which was the Halo version, and it came back the standard Series X. But I don't know. As far as researching it, I just clicked around a couple of comments on Twitter Nation. From what I can tell, this is a regular thing that it's not just Xbox, but it's PlayStation that does it too, right? And PlayStation, if you guys remember during the PlayStation 3 era when we had those fully backwards compatible systems, right?
That happened to me.
I think I had a 60 gig, the best version of it, right? That I had to get a second job for, and at some point it broke. I had the yellow light of death. I had to send it back, and they're like, "We don't have that one, but we have a 40 gig." And I think I sent it back twice. So at some point I just give me whatever the fuck you have, man, in the back, just whatever. I just accepted that. But Luis, what are your thoughts, man? Do you have kind of a little bit of a background on this? You're
Well, no, but that exact same thing happened with me with my PS3. Same thing, original launch model, whatever. Yellow light of death, sent it in. They gave me back what was actually my same console. I could tell it was the same one. Then it yellow lighted again. I sent it in, and then they said, "You know what? Could we just give you a new one? It's not going to be the same model." And I was like, "Fuck it, whatever. I just don't want to not have a PS3 for a month again." So.
And it was getting good, right? You were becoming a Last of Us fan. You were getting into what Naughty Dog was you were picking up what they were putting down at the time. Jeremy, anything? Look, this is kind of the reality of it, right? They're limited edition for a reason. A lot of it is marketing a lot of times, right? But some of this stuff is we just don't have these stock, man. They're limited edition, right? You're going to just keep it safe, keep it close, and keep it safe. Jeremy, any thoughts on this, man? Or did you have any kind of stories on a PlayStation?
No firsthand experience myself. I've never really bought anything limited edition. Most of the time I'll buy the day one stuff, and then I just don't replace it. But I have heard of that kind of thing happening in a lot of instances, even with Nintendo, right? They had the they had the Zelda GameCube and things like that. And I remember reading about those things happening with that stuff too, where people would send it back to get fixed, and they get sent back like the most basic version of it, and they're just like, what the fuck is this?
Hey man, that's just what's gonna happen. Keep your system safe. Of course, we can't always like they're just gonna break down, man. They're just gonna break down over time. Especially if you're a gamer, dude. You're using this thing like multiple hours a day, right? Or every other day, or whatever, whenever you have the time. But you're running these things. You're running these things.
Yeah.
So Jonathan, we hope we answered your question. Feel free to hit us up on Twitter or YouTube.com. We go on the comments on there. Like, Jet, where are you, man? We're putting pressure on you. Where's the questions? Where's the comments? We kind of know who he is in real IRL. We don't know if we should kind of expose him, so to speak, but we'll see. But yeah, questions, comments, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. We're gonna get into, I think, what the biggest thing is in the last few days. It's kind of dropped like Sunday night, early Monday morning. But I guess Square Enix decided to sell off Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Thief. I put Soul Raven, but I don't know if that's the name. Yeah, I forgot to fix it.
Soul Reaver.
Soul Reaver, was it Soul Reaver? Right. This thing goes back, right? We're talking PlayStation 1 era, right? Like you have to be our age to kind of remember it, and even I don't remember the name. But anyways, these guys basically sold they sold 3 companies, right, and a lot of the IP that went along with it, for $300 million, sold to Embracer Group, which is a company out of Sweden. And the interesting little factoid about this is, so they paid $300 million for like these kind of big names, right? Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, etc. And the year previous to that, they bought a company called Easy Brain. We've never heard of Easy Brain, but they bought them for double the price, $600 million for a mobile company. So this is just kind of to give you like a little perspective on the mobile situation, right? But they bought 3 studios, Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, Square Enix Montreal, so which that's a little confusing, but I guess it was an Eidos Montreal and a Square Enix Montreal. And they sold it to invest in blockchain, AI, and the cloud. So Square Enix, man, they are they're doing some interesting moves out there. A couple other details is the Tomb Raider Reboot trilogy. We find out they sold 38 million copies. The Perfect Dark reboot is going to continue with the partnership they had with the Initiative and Crystal Dynamics, which the Initiative kind of had some issues, right? Square Enix, they get Final Fantasy. So Jeremy, I think you keep getting your Final Fantasies through Square Enix proper. And they also have Life is Strange, Outriders, and Just Cause. So I'm pretty sure these have been like pretty damn successful, right? For them to hold on to, or for them to think of a future, I suppose. But this kind of makes you think like their Western strategy didn't necessarily pan out, right? Because it's really like they're not giving up Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts or anything like that. Go ahead.
They've got their big name IPs, and everything else is just kind of whatever. Mm-hmm. Like even stuff like Deus Ex is small potatoes compared to what they pull in with Final Fantasy. And the thing that surprises me is Tomb Raider. Like that's like you said, that's a big money maker for them. Mm-hmm. So it's like, why that studio out of everything? That's like a guaranteed moneymaker. So I don't get that. The rest of it, I kind of understand. They were kind of like little onesie twosie things. Most of their non-JRPG stuff that's come out recently has kind of flopped. You know, like Outriders was, it did okay. It didn't do great, but it was one of those games that was intended to be like a long-term investment. Supposed to be lots of, almost games as a service type of setup, and it just didn't pan out that way.
There is a DLC coming out for it, so I think maybe some of it is like they see it becoming bigger, right? They're like, Tomb Raider, we did whatever we did. So I think some of it is either they didn't see the growth potential in it, or it was like they just didn't care about these Western kind of companies, right? They must have bought them up, or they've got in partnerships with them, and at some point like, whatever, 300 million. Look, we got to clear some debt, and we're gonna get into this thing called blockchain and AI and the cloud. That's what we want to do. Fuck this.
We're getting out of games.
We're getting out of games. Surely. Right? As long as they keep giving us that Final Fantasy remake stuff, because that's just beautiful, man. And I know you like 16. Apparently, they're still kind of working on it. That's still coming out, right? And the online one is still kind of going strong, right? Which is what 14.
Yeah, big time.
Luis, what are your thoughts, man, on all this all these shenanigans?
I mean, it both surprises me and doesn't, just because there's a lot of game devs out there trying to get into crypto and the metaverse and that kind of stuff. So I guess they kind of did it and said, fine, if gamers don't want us to put them in our games, we're just gonna sell our games and do it like separately. So that
Yeah.
is kind of a weird like flex, I guess. I don't even
Yeah.
know how to describe it, but at the very least, I guess they're not infecting those IPs with that sort of stuff
Yeah.
in it. So
And the
so
stuff,
maybe
and at least some of it is like it wasn't, like the perfect dark reboot, which I think part of it is because Microsoft is involved too, right? Like at this point,
yeah.
I think Microsoft is invested enough to where like we will not see this fail, we will not let this fail, so we need to kind of make this happen, right? But yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. It doesn't seem like a lot of money, right? Especially what did Bungie sell for? Didn't they sell like 1.5 or like a billion, right? Or no, close to something, a shitload
I,
of money. Go back a couple
Yeah, I
episodes
don't
ago,
ever have to look.
but way more than this, and we're basically just buying Destiny, right? So it's kind of interesting.
mhm.
That like we're gonna give you everything here. Just get this off. We don't, like Jeremy said, we don't want to make games anymore. All right, if you're gonna be pissed at us for blockchain and blah blah blah, we don't like that. The next story that we have on here is, so we got a couple more details as far as the PlayStation Plus. Extra essential, and what's the other extra essential, and what's the premium, right? So we got a couple more details. One of the interesting things that came out last week, and this was kind of like after the podcast went up last week, was the fact that Sony is going to require some developers to make 2-hour demos, like at least 2-hour demos, and they're talking about like whatever game is priced 34 and up. And there was an interesting thing that they kind of were throwing around, wholesale. So I'm assuming like they mean like $40 retail and up or something like that, right? So if it sells wholesale at the minimum $34, they expect people to do 2-hour demos. Now I did want to throw this at you guys as far as this is concerned, and we're going to talk about the conversion rates in a little bit. For the trial demos, or do you guys see developers what I would like to see is that they do kind of a unique, bespoke demo, right? That it's like not even necessarily part of the game, but that's gonna take some serious work. The other way is to kind of to just time gate the beginning of it, right? But what do you think, Lise? Do we see just basic like we're time gating 2 hours, or do you think maybe we could see some like unique demos?
If we do see a unique demo, I don't think it'll be very often. In general, demos themselves are like a completely different beast because you're developing them either in tandem or like just after a certain level of like up to a certain point that the game has been developed. So you kind of have to work in a way where you're stripping or adding things that aren't there just for like a 1 hour demo or something.
Mm.
And that can take a very long time, surprisingly. So I think they're just gonna time gate them. Like I think they had something like that for some of the demos when the PS4 first came out, right? It was just like timed trial or whatever, and
Yeah.
you download it and play it for like an hour or something. So I think they'll just do that for the most part.
But it's interesting though, because it's kind of like they're like they are trying hard to kind of justify this extra $120 a year service, right, with the premium, that they're like, no, we need these demos, this is the selling point. And like you were saying, like they were already doing some of that with some of the PlayStation Plus games, right? But I think it was maybe like on a trial basis, and trust me, it did not work for Ballin Wonderworld. So it's or Wonderland, whatever the game is called. Yuji Naka was talking shit about it. All right, he don't even care about what the title of that game is. But it's for some games it doesn't work out, man. And for some games you get the majority of the experience like in a 2-hour demo, right? So it's kind of like interesting how it'll play out. Jeremy, you have thoughts on this demo thing, or were you kind of more interested in the conversion rate stuff, or you got some thoughts on this kind of demo stuff?
Yeah, well, just real quick, like the demo thing is so rare these days in general. You just don't really see it except for big AAA stuff. But I'm pretty much in agreement with Luis as far as how it's going to actually roll out. Like I think people are going to follow the the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake model, where they just released the game, but it's like, oh, you can play it for 2 hours and then you're done, right? It seems like the easiest way to go about it, rather than trying to develop something totally separate just for this particular to meet this requirement.
Or they could kind of like throw you into like the middle of the game somehow, right? Where like a big action piece where it's like, all right, you're still gonna get a big chunk of it. Is that harder, Luis? Do you know? I mean, I don't know if you know, but is that harder to give you like, let's give you a middle section of the game versus let's just give you the beginning up to 2 hours? Or
Well, either way, that's definitely harder than just starting from the beginning and putting you on a timer.
Okay, gotcha.
It's not sort of a yes or no answer to that, because it all depends on how the game was developed. Like there's some things where like, like what was it, Halo or something, didn't have like a checkpoint system. Like it just isn't built into like you going back to like play previous missions or whatever, the newest one that came out.
Yeah. Well,
So it wouldn't work for them.
Halo's always had like a little wacky checkpoint system, man. You kind of have to clear the enemies and then drive back a little bit and then go forward, and you got to see the little checkpoint thing load up. That was my trick anyway. Especially if you're playing like on legendary or something like that. It's like, okay, I got to clear out these guys and then drive far back enough to where it saves the checkpoint and then come back. But Halo's ahead of its time, man. It was my game of the year after all. So the other thing is that they came out with the conversion rates for it, which, if you guys don't know, Game Pass has kind of been doing this already. Xbox has kind of been a little wacky with this, where it's like gold, ultra for Game Pass for PC. Like, it's all kind of wacky, but we have sort of an idea of how the PlayStation Plus or PlayStation Now to PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium conversion rates are going to work. For example, if you have 1 month of like PlayStation Essential, it's 1 month of Essential turns into 3 weeks of PlayStation Plus Extra and 2.5 weeks of PlayStation Plus Premium. The other thing that Sony got really wise to is the fact that they disabled stacking subscriptions. I know our buddy Abel out there, I think he bought it like a year or so, but it was codes. You had to buy like the actual codes and stack it, like, redeem the codes and stack them. And Sony said they just disabled that feature, so they don't let you stack it. If you didn't do it, but when it was exploitable, you just didn't do it. Now you just kind of have to wait and have to use this new conversion rate. Jeremy, you got any thoughts on this, man? As far as whether it's like the stacking or the conversion rates to all this nonsense, or?
No, I'm not surprised that they did it. Like, people were finding sales on PS Plus and then just buying as many as they could manage, and then turning around and stacking them up, So, I'm surprised it took them this long, honestly. I'm not a fan of the whole new system in general, but I am surprised that it took them this long to
we didn't
stacking.
get your thoughts on it, by the way. Are you gonna go extra or premium, or you're just gonna keep regular plus?
Honestly, I'm gonna have to look at it again because I don't remember exactly how it breaks down. But anytime that a system like this, some sort of a paid, subscription type thing, breaks things up like this, it's never good. You never end up getting more out of it than you did before. Mm-hmm. So I'm leery.
Yeah, and I don't know if you like one of the main thing, like one of the things I harp on this show the last few weeks. It's like their camera came towards this kicking and screaming, right? It was like, saw what was going on with Game Pass, and Sony was like, fine, we'll provide something for you guys. But it's kind of messed up in a way where it's like you have to really like look at a list, right? It's kind of like you'll have to look at a list of what they have, and it's like, do I want to pay for it this month to play these games? That's really what it would be. To be honest, for me, it would be like a month-to-month thing, right? It's like, what do they have available? And if it has trophies too, like PlayStation 1 and all that stuff, I'm gone, dude. Like, my life is over at that point, and I will subscribe. Luis, your thoughts, man, on the whole stacking thing or the conversion rates or whatever it is?
I mean, it was no big secret on the internet. Like, pretty much as soon as they announced the pricing and everything, like it got blasted all over the internet. So I'm same as Jeremy. I'm surprised it took them this long to sort of put a stop to that. But maybe they didn't want to piss off all the people buying it and like, stacking them for 10 years or whatever the fuck it was. So.
Yeah, you could stack it for a while, dude. I know people like have even stacked the Game Pass stuff where it's like, I'm good till 2025, and this is like 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 6 years ago, whenever they're like, yeah, I'm good, man. I'm just good. So yeah, it's funny, right? Well, now people sort of have a reason, right? The reason they were trying to stack them is because for $60 you were getting $120 quote unquote worth, right? Because it's still like, even with that stackability, I was still kind of like, I don't even know if I want it in the first place. So that was kind of one of the big news stories. We'll move on to quote unquote quick takes. Intel is saying that the chip shortage, the microchip shortage, will continue until 2024 for PlayStation 5, Xbox, PC GPUs. And this was a quote from Pat Gelsinger, who is the CEO of Intel, he told CNBC, "We believe the overall semiconductor shortage will now drift into 2024." And this was I got this via IGN. He was the guy that first said that the chip shortage would delay until 2023. So this guy keeps pushing this thing out, man. Can we even believe him? I mean, we got to, right? Because these things. I know, Jeremy, you're a PC gamer. Has this impacted your life as far as like buying a GPU and upgrading your computer?
Kind of. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into why GPU pricing is stupid right now. But yeah, not really. Not as far as the availability of things. Now, in fact, there's actually been kind of a refresh here lately where some of the newer cards have started to become available. Not all of them necessarily, but some of the newer family of cards have become available. And I'm also not surprised that this is going to drift into 2024 because they just had another big shutdown over in Shenzhen and some other places where a lot of the stuff gets manufactured. So I would not be surprised to see this push, into 2025 because every time that one of these delays happens, you have a lot of competition for these semiconductors. Like the automotive industry, for instance, just eats it up. So it's like a domino effect. It's not going to be over for a while.
So we will see Mr. Pat over here on CNBC next year talking about 2025, man. And we're like, dude, we are never catching up. Stop like giving us targets over here. Luis, what are your thoughts on this, man?
I mean, I guess he hasn't been wrong yet. He has pushed back the date before the actual date gets there. So, he's kind of what was that, a Crystal Dynamic? Oh no, it was what was the developer?
Or no?
I can't believe I forgot.
We gotta get to the bottom of this, man.
No, whatever. But there's a bunch of games and devs and like even movies that are being sort of quote unquote delayed, and they're like, well, we never announced when it was coming out, so it's not really delayed.
Damn. That's. Oh, it was the guys that worked on Heavy Rain, dude. The Quantic Dream guy. I know that was like the last thing. They were like, well, can it be delayed if we never announce a date?
And like the Mario movie or something.
Yeah, the Mario movie is another little example. So nothing is delayed. If it never got an official release, nothing got delayed. What didn't get delayed, and I haven't been hearing too much about it. I don't know about you guys, but Nintendo Switch Sports is number 1 in the UK charts. And if you guys kind of are like, wait, the UK charts, what do we care about that? We love our UK listeners. But the UK charts is kind of like a week-to-week thing, right? I think it's small enough to kind of, we'll count them up. There's the copies right there. So it's number 1 in the UK charts. But what's interesting about this is that it's actually has sold half of what Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort sold. But we don't know the digital sales. And I think there was a time. Well, how would you download? I don't think these were even downloadable, right, at the time. Now you kind of can download games to your Switch, right? You have enough. Barely enough, but you can fit like 1 or 2 games on there, right? So we don't know the digital sales, so it's half of what the original sold, but it's still the number 1 selling game of last week. Luis, any thoughts specifically on kind of the sales before we move on to a little wackiness about this?
I mean, not taking digital sales into consideration, and I highly doubt they're more than that number, but not taking those sales into consideration, it doesn't really surprise me. Because when it first came out on the Wii, it was pretty cool, right? It was, you'd play it with a bunch of people and whatever, but it's not like you'd kind of sit there and grind solo. Like, I want to get really good at bowling or whatever. So I think at this point, it's kind of caught on to the consumer where they're like, oh, I'll buy that game, play it for a month, and then maybe when I have a party 2 years later, I'll bring it out. But like, people aren't really foaming at the mouth, aside from Abel, I guess, who loves
Abel in the chat sports. Really loves himself some Switch Sports. I don't know who he's gonna play with, but it does have like a progression system apparently, which is kind of pissing people off, that you actually have to play online to like unlock some things. So I am getting it from GameFly. I didn't want to day one and spend like, I don't know, however much games are nowadays. GameFly, we're still waiting on their sponsorship, by the way, but I'm getting it, so I'll have some impressions for you guys next week. And I do have children, and my wife, I'll bring her along she'll be forced to play video games. All right. So I'll report back on this, but it's nice to see, okay, it's sold, but it's a nice social game that of course is going to sell, right? Like the Mario Karts and all of that. The next thing, of course, we got the reports of TVs getting smashed. So it's the, within 24 hours, people are already smashing their TVs. And one of the things that Nintendo's Japanese customer support on Twitter, they actually put like an advisory. This is like kind of translated through Eurogamer. They basically said that stand at a good distance from the TV so you do not hit the Joy-Con controller on the screen. So and this is kind of what we were just talking about, right, Luis? Is the fact that this is like a super like mainstream type of game, right? So these people that are playing these aren't like into games necessarily. They don't really know the limits and the how the technology works, right? So they're gonna throw some shit at the TV, right? Especially if the gamer in their family that's handing them the controller doesn't put the strap on or whatever. It's like something's gonna break.
Well, phrasing.
I mean, the phrasing, but it's fair.
And same thing happens with VR.
Yeah, exactly, right. I think I told it on the podcast, but the first time I got PSVR, man, I put that thing on my mom. She was like, I put her in that demo that was on the PlayStation VR where you go underwater and there's like a tank everywhere, right? And as soon as it's funny, she saw like a shark in the distance, right? And she was like, oh, there's a shark over there. I'm like, that's fine, Mom. Don't worry about it. Oh, I knew that thing was gonna come onto the screen. And as soon as it got close, dude, I could tell, right? She's like, she's shifting her head, and then she just threw the PSVR on, dude. And I was like, damn, I just got this, Mom. She's over here just about to slam it, right? But we do have some pictures on the Twitter one if you guys want to check it out. It's on the Twitter support. But they have like little bubbles here and showing kind of the distance of how people should stay far from it and the distance of the TV. Luis, do you have any like personal stories about this, or just what do you think? I guess is that kind of what you were thinking, is that people just don't.
I don't have any personal stories. I practice safe strapping, so
Okay.
I don't have any issues with that.
Crazy.
And yeah, I mean, I kind of work in this field. I'm used to being around VR headsets, so it's not I'm pretty careful about it, you know.
Mm. Yeah. So is it fair for Nintendo to kind of put out an advisory and be like, be careful, kids. Don't smack each other.
I mean, I don't know about fair, but it's just like people should be smart enough to not be doing these things. They're just covering their asses at this point.
Yeah. If you guys can see the images, they definitely say put a bubble around you because it's scary out there. Next thing we got out there was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is officially announced. We knew it was coming, right? We kind of knew who the developer was and all that, but they finally gave us the logo, the name Modern Warfare 2, and I put down here old name, new game. We don't have any details, man. We just have the logo. But one of the funny things is in the chat that we are all a part of. I did throw that in there, and our homie Samir was like, "Wait, what is this game? Didn't this come out already?" He's like, "I mean, yes, it did, but it didn't. Not this one." So they're running out of names, dude. There's just so many games, right? That they just run out of names, I guess. That they're just kind of calling it the same thing. But what are your thoughts on this, Luis?
I mean, it was kind of what we expected. I might have even mentioned it on last week's show, but I didn't expect them necessarily to like post a tweet of just the logo, but it was sort of, they're building up hype to announce the video, like the gameplay reveal later this month, I think.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how they operate. They go dark for a while, then they throw in a logo to generate hype, and then they go dark again, and then they blow out the video. So
this is just there's just their cycle, right? And we're here talking about a damn logo.
Summer
and
blockbusters,
Jeremy's like,
so.
why? He's on the rundown. He's like, I don't care about that, and that's perfectly fine. I think I have something for you though, Jeremy. So Star Wars Jedi 2. Not Fallen Order, but it is part of the Fallen Order canon, I suppose. But it's going to be called Star Wars Jedi 2. Apparently will be a new gen only. Well, next gen only, I guess, or new gen. And it's coming out in 2023. This is a quote-unquote claim. We saw this through VG's Video Games Chronicle. Before they were actually targeting the 2022 release. This is according to Jeff Grubb's, or VentureBeat's Jeff Grubb. But he did say that, quote, Star Wars Jedi 2 is going to be new gen only, where it's PS5, Xbox Series X and S, or the speaker, and then of course PC. One of the reasons that they're going to be able to do that is because it's not coming out until 2023. The game is for sure now not coming out until 2023. That was a little kind of repetitive there, right? But I think he's kind of this was in a podcast that he was on. I think it's one of the Giant Bomb podcasts, and he was talking about how, I'm sure there's going to be more consoles by that time, right? That they can do new gen, and there'll be something new, right? Because a lot of these games have kind of been cross-platform, right? So it'll be nice to see something that's like, oh, this is only possible on a PlayStation 5. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm looking forward to it. Like I never finished the first one because I just don't get on well with like Souls-like or roguelike type games.
Yeah.
But it was like the bits that I did play were really good as far as like the story and the visuals. They did a really good job with all of that, making it very engaging. That was the only thing that kept me going. If it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have played more than an hour.
Yeah, and it was a little Metroidvania, right? But it was a little harder, right, than you kind of expect for that game. Well, I don't know what you expected. For me, I thought it was like an action game. Like what are the older ones that we got on?
Jedi Knight and Jedi Academy, those
Was it?
games.
But then we had
The
some
Force
on
Unleashed.
the Force Unleashed, right? I thought it was gonna be something like that, continuation on that, right? Or maybe what we were seeing that maybe 1313 was gonna be. So I am, the excitement for this is high, but the first one was hard, man. I didn't beat it either. I did like the Metroidvania-ish, right? Like the Metroid like type of like you go back and forth and now you unlock some sections, but yeah, it's very like Demon Souls-ish. Luis, what do you think, man?
It's hard. It's weird to say that I'm excited for it for whatever it is that they do. Specifically because I mean this will probably be the first real actual next gen game, or at least that's been announced. I guess,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or I don't know what Gran Turismo 7 is that
Horizon
PS5 exclusive?
2? Right? Oh,
No,
no, no,
that's
no, no, no.
PS4.
Yeah, the water graphics, though, on PlayStation 5. But, yeah,
But
yeah,
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 so
yeah.
so it'll be cool to see a dev sort of put all the resources of these current gen consoles into a game versus like trickling in. And I get it, that people can't find them out there. But you guys did better than I did with the first one because mine is still in the shrink wrap. Like I
Okay,
never even opened
okay.
it, so
Yeah.
I'll probably get to it soon. Hopefully,
It's,
we'll see.
yeah, go into it, maybe put it on
But don't give
easy,
me
man.
expectations.
Hey, put me on
Well,
easy. Put on
now
easy.
now now our PS5s can sound like our PS4s used to, like jet engines.
Yeah, at
Yeah,
some point,
exactly.
right? At some point.
But
Mine
launch,
was like right from the beginning, dude. It was doing weird shit, man. I had to like reset that thing. Like it was like I was like, is this gonna brick on me in the very near future? So, but it's been going good. It's been going nice and steady, and I'm gonna have to return it, and they're gonna give me something that's not what I purchased in the first place, but that's fine. Anything else on that, Luis, or we'll move on to the next thing on here.
nope.
So the next thing, and we did kind of mention it earlier, but Yuji Naka, maker of what is this game called? Balan Wonderland or Wonderworld. He throws everyone under the bus at Square Enix in a Twitter tirade, and it was in Japanese, so it kind of. I don't know which translation to trust. All right, and look, I'm an interpreter myself. I do some translation as well. I usually give people benefit of the doubt, but some of this crap is rough. I'm like, this is obviously you guys are really just like not trying. There was one guy, Cheesemeister, 3K I think or 2K. I think his was kind of, it seemed like he was the most legit about it. But so Yuji Naka could not talk about the game for a while because he was actually suing Square Enix for being kicked off as a director like the months prior to the game releasing. And part of the tirade was that he was talking about how he wanted the game to be better, right? Or he had kind of these ideas that they said, no, just put it out. And he did in one of his tweets, he said, quote, "Personally, I believe that it is a true disgrace that Balan Wonderworld was released in the state that it was in. I wanted to release it to the world as an action game in a proper form considering various things. I think Square Enix and Arcest are companies that do not care about games and game fans." So he just full scorched earth out here, man. He said, whatever, fuck him, I'm leaving, right? Like, well, he got kicked off, right? So maybe it wasn't his decision. But now that the case is over or settled, or he could just say whatever he wants, right? He's kind of like, whatever, man. These guys don't care about nothing. Jeremy, what do you think about this, man?
I think this ties back to what we were talking about, at the top of the show. Like, there's been a definite decline in Square Enix titles in like the last 5-10 years, and I don't think that they are that interested in making games anymore. It seems like they're slowly drifting away from it. Keeping the big IPs, the stuff that prints money, sure, but anything else,
Yeah, it's a little weird because it seems like I don't know about you guys, but I love Japanese games, man. They're just the right amount of wackiness, right? And we grew up with them. And Nintendo saved the industry, right? When Atari crashed and burned it in the 80s. But it seems like, I don't know, like it happened around like the 360 era, right? Like the 05, 06, where Microsoft, an American company, was like, we know how to make shooters and people will love shooters, right? It sort of started with Halo, right? But PS2 was super dominant, right? But like 05 or 6, you started to see a shift where Western developers were kind of taking over, right? Where we have Modern Warfare 2, the same named game, like, and it causes so much excitement, right? Where
like
Final
Boogaloo.
Fantasies don't cause that much excitement, right? There is the niche audience, right? There's a couple millions of people that love it, and deservedly so, right? But I feel like there's been a shift where like these Japanese companies like have not like been able to, at least as far as like to retain the hardcore gamer, right? Like Sega's sort of like this, right? Yakuza's their big series, but other than that, they even lost one of their big companies to Goku or whatever we talked about a few weeks ago, Luis, that they even brought down the Sega sign, and they're focusing on different Konami, PES, and every so often they talk about Silent Hill, maybe. And you know they were able to just ship off Kojima easily enough, and now with like Square Enix, right, where they're like, we just want to do blockchain crap. Like we don't know where we're going in this, you know, kind of what we're doing out here in the sense, right, as far as a hardcore gamer. I know I went into a little tirade there, but Luis, what about this Yuji Naka or whatever else?
I mean, yeah, he's kind of echoing what I think a lot of consumers are thinking, people that used to respect Square Enix. And I mean, that company's not alone. There's been this big trend of like games that are releasing either unfinished or not realizing their full potential. I mean, we always talk about Cyberpunk, but Halo came out in like stages, and even
In
still,
chunks,
it's
right?
not done.
Yeah.
And then we have what was it? Outriders came out. It was super buggy, but then they kind of fixed it real quick. So like, it's just a big trend of games that people are just trying to make them print cash, not realizing that they're doing the exact opposite by doing that, because then people will steer clear of them. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he's not wrong, but he did definitely scorch some earth there at it. So I don't know what's gonna happen with him after that. We'll
Yeah.
see.
I hope it's not like full like retirement. He's gonna do like a manga or something, and he's like, I want to continue this world, the Ball and Wonder world, in
Bridges were
manga
burned.
form. Yeah, I hope not, man. I hope he kind of attaches himself to like a developer or something, right, where he kind of creates some more games.
Kojima, maybe.
Kojima, little Kojima Productions. The next thing we have on here is, I put it as E3 lives ? Microsoft is acting like there's still gonna be an E3 apparently. So June 12th at 10 a.m. basically the time that they would have, the time and day that they would basically have a conference for E3. They're still doing it. It's gonna be live streamed everywhere. It's gonna be an Xbox plus Bethesda game showcase. So I don't know. I don't think Sony has said anything or Nintendo has said, but I think it'll be funny, right, if they all kind of like gather around like a similar date, but there's no physical presence of E3, but they're like, let's just stream stuff around this time. But it's interesting, right? I'm kind of down, you know. Bethesda, Xbox, they have a lot of things going on, and competition's nice and fierce right now, right, with Game Pass, and kind of moves all over the place. So Jeremy, what are your thoughts on this, man? Is this a little wacky? Are you excited that there's going to be a conference? Or
Yeah, so we've actually, I think we've talked about this on the podcast before. Actually, one of the last ones that I was on, if I remember correctly. But
when you were kicked
this
off
is,
the podcast, right?
yes,
Yeah.
booted
Got booted.
violently.
Yeah.
But you know, we talked about this, and I think this is just going to be kind of the way of the future. I don't think we're going to see physical E3 anymore. That'll go away entirely, and instead, you're just going to have your individual, you know, developers doing their own live streams for this kind of
Showcases
stuff.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, it just doesn't make business sense anymore, especially not after COVID and everything showed that you didn't need to be physically present. It's like, well, why would we spend that money? All we gotta do is throw some videos on a screen and put a slideshow up, and we're good.
Yeah. I know one of the big things, like I don't think you guys follow this guy, right? Michael Pachter. He always says that the point of the ESA and E3 and all that really isn't necessarily like the fact that they can kind of replace it with the digital event, but his kind of argument is usually that it's like the ESA is there for like showing how big of a deal the industry is, because the ESA is not like its own thing. It's really a combination or consortium of all these companies, Microsoft, Sony, Activision, where they're trying to keep like Congress off their back. And like, like, look, it's a big thing. It's a big deal. It makes a lot of money. So kind of leave us alone. Look, we know what we're doing, right? So it's kind of funny that it's sort of like penny pinching, right? Where they're like, it costs millions of dollars to put on a show. But it's like, well, but CBS is going to be there. Fox is going to be there, right? More mainstream things. Unless to them, they're like, we're doing good enough. We got Game Pass. We're competing. We got enough. It's okay, right? But I think that's kind of one of the purposes of E3. But yeah, they'll just keep doing this, right? They'll live stream because it must make sense to them, right? Luis, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be exactly during this E3 sort of ghosted area, but I do know that Sony recently did announce that they were doing some sort of event, and I don't know if it was State of Play. I think it was some other game, which is why I was other name, which is why I was so intrigued. Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe they'll do one around the same time. I don't know about Nintendo. They like to do their little, swap to this bullshit. But
Switch, enjoy the Switch. I don't even think they say
no,
Switch.
Yeah, I like
they
saying
just
swap.
Snap, dude. They just
I like saying swap to this.
Let's swap to this. Let's swap to this. I like it.
But yeah, cool. I mean, we'll watch it at your own pace, and then similar to like what Jeremy was saying, I think a lot of these companies have discovered that they can create a higher polished production value sort of event if they do it all pre-recorded versus like a live event, because Apple's been doing that. They've had the chance to bring people into their campus, and they're still doing these videos for their events. So I think it's probably just going to keep going this way.
So we'll see what happens. But the people are and Keeley has his like summer game fest, so I think I wouldn't be surprised for him to like, all right, let's all look, Microsoft is first, Sony, Nintendo, let's wrap it into like Summer's Game Fest or whatever and kind of get something going, right? So we'll see what happens. But I think it was not the last, right? I don't think it's the last that we'll hear of like a showcase, whether it's from EA or Activision or whatever else. I mean, I'm sure we'll have some Activision type stuff in here, right? Well, the deal still has to go through, right? But we might get a little taste of it. The other thing we have is that there's a new game called Gravity Goal that's apparently trying to compete with Rocket League. So this is like 7 years later. I think Rocket League actually has kind of been in some ways like lucky, I guess, that they haven't really have competition, right? It's been Rocket League. There is no other soccer game, right? It's been the soccer game for 7 years. That's the official name that they put in there, by the way, soccer. But this Gravity Goal game is going to be made by 2K Sports. It's inspired by the Tron movies. You're gonna be driving around like Tron-like bikes, and players are gonna throw like discs at each other. So it's gonna be a more combative version of soccer. It's gonna be 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, and apparently there's gonna be all kinds of modifiers and all kinds of craziness. I will say this: that Rocket League, and I think we were just talking about it the other day, right, Luis? I was talking about it maybe just in my mind. But Rocket League is when I first started playing Rocket League. I will get into all the wacky modes, but at some point you just understand that the standard mode is where it's at, right? Like the standard game is just like perfect. It's a perfect game, I feel. So it's kind of, we'll see what happens with 2K Sports, but there's a lot of Tron references. Like, why not just be a Tron game? Like, I don't, right? Like, it's kind of like, it's a lot of Tron references.
Because they got to pay Disney.
They got to pay Disney. But what do you think, Lisa? You're kind of resident Rocket League expert on this show, right?
I wouldn't say I'm the expert. I mean, I do play quite a lot. Not as much anymore. But, yeah, I'll check this out. The 2K part kind of throws me a little bit off. That makes me unsure, but we'll see. I don't want this thing to turn out for their sake. I don't want this thing to turn out like all these other games that come out. They create a bit of a splash and then immediately fall off the radar. So
it's quite a bit.
We'll see.
It's gonna be a Game Pass game, a PlayStation Plus game, or whatever. But you know why you're really thrown off though? And put the camera on me, Dalen, because they're not gonna be working on GTA 6. That's why it throws you off. All right, log off of GTA.
I mean, 2K is the publisher, not the dev, so there's a bit of a difference there, but.
I mean, that's a fair point, man. I mean, that's a very fair-ass point. But some resources could go towards GTA 6, all right, is the moral of the story, I think. I think that's how it works.
I think
that's how it works. Jeremy, what do you think, man? Yeah, you're not too big of a Rocket League fan, right? But
no, but it's I haven't played it all that much. But when I do play it, it's always a good time. I think part of that has to do with the ridiculousness that is our group playing games together. But as far as this particular game goes, I think it's going to depend a lot on how the game within the game is played and how that plays out. Because like the thing that I like about Rocket League is that it's a competitive game. It's like because you're playing against another team, but it is, I guess the way to describe it would be fully competitive. Like everything about getting the ball from one end of the field to the other and getting it in that goal is competitive, or sorry, cooperative, right? It sounds like this might be a little bit more like every man for himself, but you're on a team. So it's not like you're going to be helping your teammate to to score points. Again, it depends on what the rules of the game within the game are. If it's just like a last man standing thing, I probably won't be very interested. But if it's something a little more compelling, then I might check it out.
Yeah, we got to see more, right? And I think a lot of the big thing with Rocket League is just it's always in motion, right? But it's not necessarily like I'm trying to blow crap up all the time. It really is kind of like you're saying. It's like you're working together. It's a team sport. All right, you're trying to accomplish some shit. So that's it for the news this week. But we will get into what you've been playing. Jeremy, if you want to throw in what you've been playing on there, put no pressure. But if you want to throw in a game or two on there. But speaking of this combative game, I don't know if you got a chance to, Luis, but I did play the Rocket League, the knockout mode that they added, and I think it's up.
I didn't like it.
I was about to say that. Actually, I was like, I tried it before the show. I was like, let me get a couple rounds in. And I got murdered right away. You get 3 lives, right? Got murdered right away. And I'm like, okay, well, when do I get back in? And I was sitting there 3-4 minutes because I died immediately, right? Because I didn't know the rules. But there's like a grabbing movement. There's a throwing. There's like, there's a lot of, like we were just talking about, like Jeremy was just mentioning. It's like it became combative. Like, so it's kind of like, I didn't like it. I feel like we have to play it a little bit more together, Luis, before it's up. If we have a little bit of time, because I feel like if we're a team and we're at least talking crap while all this is happening, maybe it could work. Because there was the football wacky mode where fucking throwing the football with the car, man. I mean, it was very ridiculous. And I think this possibly could be that. It's kind of like a little Smash Bros ish, right? Because you're throwing people off a stage, right? The one I played was Calavera. There's like spikes all over the place. It's not really like an enclosed space. It's like there's limits, right? Like where you kind of like Smash Bros, where you're throwing someone off the stage and they're knocked out.
No, I think there's only one stage for that mode, and it's that one.
So there's spikes that you can throw people into, and you can throw them down or across the stage, right? So I feel like we gotta play it, man. We gotta at least, let's get a group together and at least try it, and then we can together be like, nah, this is trash. But definitely, if you die, if you lose your 3 lives, you're just sitting there, man, just watching all the other players. Do you have any thoughts on that? Besides, I didn't like it. Is anything else on that?
It was just weird, kind of going into. Which I guess they kind of do for every single game mode, but for that one, I feel like they should have thrown you into a bit of a tutorial with like a regular map versus just like, here's completely new mechanics, here's a completely new map where there's like, you could fall off everywhere. Yeah. There's spikes, and you're supposed to try to learn how to play this game. So that's kind of what threw me off, because I don't think I went in there launch day, and it would have been kind of like an even playing field. But yeah, I went in there and I didn't last very long. I think I even killed myself twice versus like someone killing me.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's definitely got to understand the rules of it, right? It's completely like different, especially because it feels weird. Because the camera, like in regular Rocket League, you can kind of lock onto the ball. Shout out to Abel. Every time we play with this guy, we're playing for like 3-4 minutes, sometimes like 2 matches in, and he's like, how do you guys keep track of the ball? I was like, dude, there's a lock on button. Like it kind of like starts off that way, but so it's already weird because there is no ball to lock on, right? There is no locking onto a ball, so it's already kind of a weird perspective. But I say let's give it a shot, man. Let's give it before it's gone. see if we can miss. Because football started off kind of like, what are the rules to this? And then at some point, it's like, it's dumb, it's wacky, but we're throwing a football with the car, man. And we were throwing perfect spirals. We we were throwing perfect spirals with the car. The other thing I played, I did finally finish Kirby Forgotten Land. It turns out that game becomes unboring the further you go into it. When it starts to get hard, man, it starts to not bore me to death. Yeah, it's kind of unboring. It has like an interesting like weapon upgrade system where you have to find blueprints, and then you go into these like little mini games, like, or little mini stages where you're basically taking advantage of the power, and you can upgrade it. So you're getting stars to go back to town and upgrade. And pretty much every weapon, there's like 10, 12 weapons that you can upgrade them. At some point, the regular bomb, I upgraded it to have like a homing capabilities. So you bet I was throwing like grenades left and right, and they were just homing into the enemies and just straight murdering them. And there's sort of like an end game. You get to the end of the actual like just the regular courses. And it's pretty easy for the most part, right? But at some point it did start getting challenging enough to where I had to bring in an extra like healing item, so just to be ready for that. And then the end game is like an extra 5-6 stages where it's like it's kind of long, and you better be like ready to be challenged. So I'm surprised, man. A Kirby game, and I did put on here dupe, because you put dupe last time, Lisa, for Pokemon Legends Arceus, and maybe it's a Nintendo thing. They said this game is over, end cutscenes. They're like, nope, we got 5 or 6 more levels, and I was like, oh, it's just repurposed levels. Like, no, they're actually like legit nice levels. So I was like, I kind of got duped. There's still a little bit more. I did return it because whatever. I'm looking forward to Sifu, trying to get Sifu. And Sifu's getting an easy mode, so like perfect time to update it now that the physical edition is coming out. Did you get a chance to play Sifu, Jeremy, or no?
No. So again, I'm just not big on roguelites, and when I looked at that one, I was like, it looks like it could be good, but it's not something I would like buy brand new. Maybe if I saw it on sale or something, I might check it out, but.
Yeah, and speaking of roguelikes, man, we did get a code for this game, unfortunately, and they sent us an early code for Loot River, and I say unfortunately, I didn't really have a time to play it, but it is on Game Pass, so you guys could try it out. I tried it. I wanted to like it. I don't know if you guys have seen the trailer for this or any of the gameplay for this. It's sort of like a roguelike mixed with Tetris. So Tetris, you talk about Tetris, I'm already interested, man. I'm already way into it. But I did boot it up, and I gotta say, it's a roguelike, man. I for what it is, it's a beautiful game, dude. I've never seen such beautiful pixelated water graphics. It's incredible, like shifting the stages around, and like how the water dips down and up in pixels, in just heavy pixels. It looks great. It looks beautiful. I kind of do like the fact that it's an overhead perspective versus like an Elden Ring where it's 3D. For whatever reason, I feel like those games are like, maybe because they're slower feeling, right? That it feel like a little sluggish or whatever, even though they're they can be pretty precise. But the fact that this is a 2D game, pixelated, over the head, it just feels nicer to me. And the fact that like the Tetris scene is cool, where you actually move the stages around, you move it with the right stick. So, and that you can actually, there's strategies to it where you can actually bring an enemy on board, and you kind of move away from it because you don't want to have all these other enemies kind of come in and hit you up, so you're not hitting 5 or 10 enemies at a time. Or you can move the stage when you're charging up your move. You move the stage over and you attack them right at the correct moment. But look, check it. It is on Game Pass, so it's free asterisks. So feel free to check it out. Loot River, nice pixelated graphics. It's pretty precise, but I think I'm done, man. I think I'm done. I got murdered. Like, you reset to the beginning of the stage. I did like 3 or 4 times. Like, it looks great. It plays great. And I can kind of see having fun with the upgrade system. But being reset, and your reset, like, your XP is reset too. And it's like, roguelites.com, man. But Game Pass, please try it out. If you have Game Pass, please try it out. It's you might like it. I don't know. You might like it. Luis, what have you been playing this past week?
I actually haven't played anything new this week, or games that I haven't beat necessarily, but I have been playing a lot more Rocksmith within the past week. I'm trying to learn a lot of Radiohead and Soundgarden songs, so I've just been kind of going going crazy on that, having a lot of fun with it as always. And then, of course, I have to play some GTA Online. But this week it was a little different because I did just get the Pulse 3D headset from PlayStation,
Okay.
and the next gen update has 3D audio on it, and I just kind of wanted to see what it would sound like. And the way that they built the game with the headset and the dual sense, it is actually sort of pretty immersive in the sense that, like, when you hear things, obviously they're 3D and spatialized and all that, but the actual dual sense itself sort of vibrates depending on where the sound is coming from. So like it kind of does feel a little like fully immersive. Feels a lot more
Okay.
immersive than without, with one or the other. So yeah, it's really fun. Having a lot of fun with that as always.
I still haven't upgraded, man, to next gen edition. Mainly because stop logging into GTA 5. All right, thank you for putting the camera on me, Dalen. But I kind of want to try it, man. And I do have the Pulse 3D headsets and like the PS5, and it's what, $10
Mm.
or whatever. You're talking about the campaign though. You're talking about online. It even does all that cool extra stuff.
Well, I don't have the campaign. I just got
Okay.
the free online upgrade, but I mean it's for the whole game.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
for both.
I haven't played that game since it originally dropped on PlayStation 3, right? So, but I just don't want to log into it, man. I don't want to. They need to work on GTA 6, dude. I
I
just
mean, you
don't
already
understand.
paid for it.
Can't contribute.
I just can't do it, man. I just can't log into it. But I'll let you know, maybe at some point. Jeremy, have you played anything kind of anything big, anything kind of interesting in the last,
So
last month?
one of the reasons I stopped coming on the podcast was just time, right? And unfortunately, I haven't had a lot of time. But the one new thing that I have been playing is Horizon Forbidden West. I'm only a few hours into it, but already it's just like, man, I forgot how good this game was. And yeah, I've just been really enjoying it. Like, it's not like a massive upgrade from the previous game in terms of like visuals and such, but it runs like buttery smooth 60 frames per second. There are some, upgrades here and there, things like there being a lot more foliage and that sort of stuff. And it's got so far all of the best mechanics from the first game, and it seems to be building on them. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting further in that and finding out exactly how far they go with it. Because I know there's a lot of things they added, like being able to tame machines and ride them. Like yeah, they just built on it. I want to see exactly how it plays out.
Well, and as far as I understand, Luis says there's some areas to the game where the original game I played through and it was like level 30 bosses, blah blah blah. I was like level 22. I was like, I don't care. I'm going through them. I'm running through that. Like I don't care. But Luis was saying like some of these areas you actually have to be leveled, right, Luis? Like some. I don't know if you've gotten that far enough, Jeremy, where you're like,
I don't
I'm
remember
nope, dude.
saying that. I
I
haven't played
bet you.
that game in a while.
Oh,
I
I
was
bet you
talking
have.
about Pokemon last week, and I said that. Maybe you're
Mm,
confusing them.
okay. But because that's how I want to play it. I want to run through
Mm.
these areas. I don't care that it says level 32 and I'm only 19.
Oh,
All
you're
right.
gonna hit that upgrade screen real quick because you're gonna die real fast if
Okay.
you do play like that.
Yeah. As I've mentioned on the pod before, Jeremy, the way I upgrade my characters is I have to reach a point when I die, and then when I die, I'm like, okay, what I need to get over this like area that I just died in. So I wait for that, and me and Dalen have been playing some co-op games over the last few weeks where this guy like he wants to get in the menu immediately. He sees like a one point, and he's like, how I need to check the menu immediately and like what can I do, like, and I'm like, no, we need to continue, we need to keep running, man, we need to continue and get critical path this game here. But I'm glad you're having fun with it. How far into it are you, Jeremy? Would you say?
I am about maybe 5 hours at the most, probably not even that into it. I'm like right at the point where, Aloy sets off going west.
Okay.
Uh, and that's right where I left off.
Have you? Oh, I think that took like an hour, dude. I was like, that's how much I was like criticalpath.com. It was like, I just want to get there. What's the next point?
Yeah.
You've upgraded the game? You've updated it, right? Where it gives you the quality of life / a physical couch into your house, where it just picks up things automatically, right? Do you like that? Did you turn that on? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the resource stuff you can kind of pick up automatically, or I don't know if you kind of have to hold the button instead of like she bends down, picks up the twigs or whatever, which wasn't that bad of an animation. Like it didn't take that long, right? But apparently they updated it recently where you're just kind of walking across and you're just picking up all these items. So I don't know if
Yeah, I
you haven't
mean,
noticed
I hold it. Like you have to. I think you still have to hold, unless there's an option that I don't have turned on. You still have to hold it, but it's like it's pretty quick.
Okay.
So I don't know.
That's what I want in my life. All right, so that's the end of Salient Points. We did have one last thing, the zinger here. Did you guys see that this guy modded? It's called the Laugh and Learn Game and Learn controller. He modded it to be able to play on his PC, as you know, it would recognize it as an Xbox controller. And of course, he was playing Elden Ring with this thing. Were you guys able to get a chance to see that clip? It's a Fisher Price toy. It has one single analog stick, and it has like a little D-pad, and it's got like a little power button thing, and it has a nice little yet another layout, because you know how Nintendo has a A-B and then Xbox has B-A or X. Look at this one, man. This was A-B-C-D, like just all around in clockwise formation here. But if you guys didn't get a chance to see the clip, I suggest you do, because he left the noises in there, dude. Like the noises is still in there while he's playing the game. So you're all the little dumb Fisher Price toy animations. My question to you guys is, if it has all these annoying noises and you're playing Elden Ring, Jeremy, how quickly will you smash this controller, man? Or throw it against the wall?
Considering you're playing Elden Ring, probably pretty quick, because them bosses are a nightmare sometimes. So I can only imagine, you getting your ass beat like 15 times by the same boss while you're listening to like a speak and spell type thing. It only adds to the rage.
Yeah. Oh, and only one analog stick, so that's good. That's extra fun right there. It does have triggers though, or it has like shoulder buttons, if you can see on there. Luis, how quickly would you throw this controller, man, against the wall?
I do like that the D-pad also counts 1, 2, 3, 4 and count in clockwise form. But I would never use this thing for more than a minute, dude. There's no way.
It is a learn game and learn controller. But yeah, so it's about like $7 or $8. I do like how it's Wario64 is out there promoting it. This guy, I enjoy it, dude. He does the Sleepy Dog stuff every so often, where there's a Sleeping Dogs like a promotion or whatever. He's like, oh, Sleepy Dogs is on sale, and he's changed the image to where it says Sleepy Dog, like on the Steam page, and like everywhere it says Sleepy Dog. So he took the effort to do that. And now with this Laugh and Learn Game and Learn controller, this guy's talking about like, oh, it's $7. You can play it on Elden Ring if you mod it. And what else did he say? He's like, yeah, it's available to purchase or whatever. So this guy, he has fun out there. He has never been seen, I don't think. I've never seen a real life picture of this guy, but he's out there. And look, $7-8 for this Laugh and Speak and Spell. That's been Salient Points number 67. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave some comments, leave something, and we'll make sure to shout you guys out on Twitter at We Got Comms. I'm at a Do Say Clean. Luis, you're at LC Mendez. Is that it, or do you have some numbers in there? Just LC
no,
Mendez,
that's it.
Jeremy's just out in somewhere.
Not on the Twitterverse.
He's not on the Twitterverse or nothing. But yeah, I'm Carlos Macias, Master of Arms, whatever Dalen wants to call it. Jeremy Lowe, thank you for joining us again, sir. After
Thanks for having me.
Your banishment, you're welcome
back. My forced hiatus.
Your hiatus. And we were doing video. We were not doing video at the time, right? When you were kicked off the show. So I'm glad people get to see you this time. And Luis Mendez on the wheels still. Thank you for doing it, sir. I know it was your birthday today, though, but we are gonna see.
You already know.
We are gonna see some stand up though in a couple of days. I was like, look, I got your birthday gift. Not that I didn't have anything for you, but
doesn't matter.
But are you a fan of Burr? We're seeing Bill Burr. You a fan of this guy? No.
You asking me or Jeremy? Because you already got me the tickets.
Well, too late for that.
Right.
Yeah. No, I love Bill Burr. All
right, we'll see if he can make us laugh. Then, all right, we'll see you guys next week. We'll see who's on the show, like the rotating chairs over here. We'll see if Jeremy is still banished. I guess we'll find out next week. Latest.